It's Tuesday, April 20. What is today? April 23rd.
28th of Omer.
The 28th of Omer. And the Parsha is Emor. Different than Omer. Omer is with an ayin, Emor is with an aleph. Anyway, in this week's Parsha, it talks about Kohanim. Do we have any Kohanim here? Maybe we look around. Actually, 50% of the shul is Kohanim right now.
No.
Lenny is here.
Lenny's here? Oh,
Yeah. Okay, so the Torah starts off by saying the rule that, we have a rule that if somebody dies, they are tomei. Tomei means contaminated. So in these days, it doesn't really make that much of a difference because we don't eat any holy food. We don't bring any sacrifices, and there's no concept really of being. I mean, there is a concept, but we're not really careful that we shouldn't become tomei. Nevertheless, even if a regular person, if he goes into a room where there is a dead person, he goes to the cemetery or a funeral, you wash your hands.
Let me, I'm sorry to interrupt you, but do we have to have the paranuma to metaher, to clean up?
Yeah.
Or
Yes.
Yes. In those days,
Yes.
they had to have.
They had to have it, right. Now,
They had to have what? Explain that to me.
the red heifer. The red heifer would
If you got
contaminated, would purify you. Now, a Kohen, a priest, it doesn't make a difference what kind of a Kohen, a regular Kohen, a Kohen Gadol or something, or what we call a Kohen Hedyot, that means or a lay Kohen, so to speak, is not allowed to. He's not allowed to go next to a defiled person, next to a dead person, and there are only 7 people that he's allowed to contaminate with himself. God forbid one of the parents, that's 2, a son or a daughter, a brother and a sister, and his wife. So these are the 7 people that he's allowed to contaminate himself with. Now,
Nobody needs like touch or to go in the
oh, now, what does it mean? So Rabbi Stern is asking, what does it mean contaminate? How does a person get contaminated from a dead person? There are 3 ways. Touching,
being the same place,
being in the same room as him, and then the same OL, and another way.
touching, being there,
Touching, being in the same.
carrying.
If you're carrying somebody, even though you're not touching him, if he's on a chair and you're lifting up the chair and carrying him, or push him in a wheelchair or whatever.
What about a pallbearer?
Exactly. A pallbearer, a Kohen cannot be a pallbearer unless it's one of those 7 people, which are his the extreme immediate family.
Pallbearer is a wheelchair? What is it?
Pallbearer is the people who lift up the casket when they carry it. Now,
So in Judaism, we're not kissing the corpses like they do.
no, we're not allowed to touch a dead person. We're not allowed to kiss a dead person.
Because you're holding your hand as the person you're holding.
Not only aren't you allowed to kiss a dead person, but God forbid, we should never know this, that we have somebody that we know that's dying and the doctor says he has 15 minutes left to live, and let's say the person is wide awake, but his heart's going to stop, whatever it is. You can't go over to that person and kiss him.
Even though he's not dead yet?
Even though he's not dead. If he's about to die, you can't touch him, much less kiss him. Because you can never know that something you do will make him die quicker.
Uh-huh.
So we can only extend
Maybe from the love, just...
But, moving a person who's very sick, you never know if somebody's heart is very weak. Just the fact alone that he's going to strain himself, to do any activity, so you can't touch. It's a very, very hard thing to control.
With this subject.
Yeah.
God forbid, a parent or somebody like that, you're in a hospital bed, you're holding their hand,
Right.
and all of a sudden they expire.
Yeah, you have to leave go right away. So leave go. Yeah. So it's a very difficult thing. I unfortunately was in that situation twice in my life with both of my parents, where I was there, and it's very hard thing. You emotionally you want to hug them and kiss them. It's a very difficult thing to do, but you can't. We have this concept in the Torah. It's called kvod habrios, human dignity. Respect for a person, whether he's dead or alive. We have this concept of human dignity. Now, human dignity means that let's say, I'm going to give you an example. Let's say you're in shul, you have your tallis on, and a person walks in, and somehow or another, whether it's male or female, one of their clothing falls off. And now they're exposed. They're embarrassed, whether they're wearing nothing or just, some minimal clothing. So so you take your tallis and you wrap it around them. You don't look as like, this is a holy tallis. I'm not going to use it to cover up this person, who's naked. Because when the Torah is very concerned about preserving human dignity.
Isn't it true the same case you had by Lot? No.
Right. Yeah, not by Lavan. Noah. The children covered him up. Yeah. Okay. So here's the question. Let's say a Kohen goes to sleep at night, and let's say he's one of those people that likes to sleep without clothes on. Okay, a lot of people do that. There's nothing wrong with that, really. I don't think so. And there's another.
They have underwear.
Let's say they don't have, but let's say, and they're sleeping, another person is sleeping with them, and then in the middle of the night, the other person dies. Now, what's the Kohen? Now, the Kohen is in the same room as the other person. So, what is the Kohen supposed to do? Is he supposed to quickly grab his pants, put it on, and run out? Or he should not even take his pants, he should run out naked. Because every second that he is in the room, like we said before, he's being defiled. And it's not a one-time defilement. It's a continuous biblical prohibition to be in the same room as a dead person. Continuous. So for every second that he's in there, he's violating that law.
Hard question.
What?
It's a hard question.
Yeah, so is he supposed to run out? So we actually have a Gemara. In other words, what we could say he should run out because he can't violate the law. The Torah says it's a very clear law that you cannot
supposed to be
in the same room. Or are we concerned with his human dignity? So we have conflicting views on this, and it's a very fine line when we have to decide what the right thing to do. But the source of all this is the Gemara in Brachas. The Gemara in Brachas says we have a few different things. First of all, how do we even know where do we even know that the Torah cares about human dignity? So we get that from where the Torah speaks about returning a lost article. The Torah says that if you're walking on the street and you know what? Let me let me see if I could actually find that very quickly, because it may be important for the exact wording.
I'm not concerned. If somebody becomes contaminated now, what do they do?
Okay.
Everybody's contaminated.
Okay. It talks about hashavas avei. It talks about ways of helping other people. One of the ways is that if you shall if you shall see your brother's sheep or goat cast off, and hide yourself from them, you should hide yourself from them. No, you shall return those animals to your brother. And so you shall do to any lost article of your brother that may become lost from him, and you find it, you shall not hide yourself. Don't hide yourself. Don't make yourself invisible, but rather go and return it to them. Okay? So the Gemara says that because the Torah says you shall not hide from them, it means that there are times that you could hide yourself from them. But in this case, the Torah says don't hide yourself from them. You follow? Yes. Like why would the Torah use that expression, you shall not hide yourself from them? The Torah doesn't say you shall not eat a salami sandwich. You don't eat a salami sandwich then. Put down your salami sandwich, go return the article. So, because the Torah tells you not to do something, it means that there's a possibility that you do. So the Gemara says what it means. The Gemara says in Brachas, it says, Toshama ve'salamto, it says, hide from them. Pa'amim sha'atam misalam behem, and pa'amim she'natam misalam. The time that you could hide and the time you can't. What's the case where you could hide? What's the case where you see somebody lost his jacket and you are allowed to hide yourself from it and not pick it up and return it to him? The Torah gives the Gemara gives two examples. It gives, let's say, if it's a Kohen, and if if the jacket is in the cemetery, he can't go in. But it gives another example. If he's an elderly person, and it doesn't really mean old in age, but means wisdom. If he's a rabbi, and let's say the jacket is underneath somebody's car, he does not have to bend down, creep under the car, and get that jacket because it's not befitting for him. It's not dignified for him. So the Torah says that you do not have to.
So you could hide yourself.
You can hide yourself from. You don't have to
do the job.
Violate your own dignity to do this mitzvah. Okay?
Nice.
Now, that's one example the Torah gives. The other example, the Gemara. The other example the Gemara gives is that, let's say we just said that a Kohen is not allowed to contaminate himself with a dead person. Now, what happens that somebody is on his way to sacrifice the Korban Pesach? We know that we have to sacrifice the Korban Pesach when the time of the temple, on the 14th of Nisan, we have to sacrifice a Korban Pesach. What happens if he's on his way to do a Korban Pesach, or if he's on his way to do another mitzvah? Let's say he's on his way to a bris. He's a Moel. He's on his way to do a bris. And he sees a dead person laying on the street. A dead person laying on the street, there's nobody there to bury him. So he's allowed to contaminate himself. Besides these 7 things, he's allowed to contaminate himself for something that's called a meis mitzvah. A dead person, which is a mitzvah. It's a mitzvah. There's nobody else there to bury him. He's allowed to. What?
Talking about Yehudi?
Yeah, talking about a Jewish person, I believe. Something to look into. But he's allowed to defile himself because it's not dignified for a human being to lay dead on the street, exposed, and nobody should bury him.
Goy has a tumah met? Goy has a tumah met?
Yes,
goy.
yeah.
I mean, non-Jewish cemetery.
Right, yes.
It's the same as
yes.
So let me ask you, what about the person that sits with the body all night?
He has to wash his hands afterwards, but that's not a Kohen. A Kohen can't do that.
Okay. A regular person gets contaminated, you touch a dead body.
You have to go wash your hands.
That's all, just wash your hands.
Well, there's nothing else you can do. There's no more temple.
Well, you could go to the mikvah, I guess. But.
No.
Okay.
No, mikveh doesn't help for that. Now, so here we see that the Gemara says that to preserve human dignity, you don't have to follow certain laws, even in the Torah. Now, however, there is a difference. We have to be very careful. You're allowed to be passive, but you can't be active. In other words, if you're going to ruin somebody's human dignity, and you tell the rabbi he does not have to bend down, creep under the car to get the jacket and return it. You can just tell him to hide himself from it. In other words, don't do it. There's a concept of shave, sit, ve'al tasa, and don't do it. That's one type of violation of laws, where you violated the law by not doing something. So in those cases, you're allowed to do that if it means you're going to ruin human dignity. But what about actively going and doing something against the Torah? In that case, you cannot violate the law, even if human dignity is involved. So an example of that would be, let's see what an example of that would be. Give me an example.
The conservative are basing, and there's a very thing from the Gemara, they're basing their acceptance of gay marriage, because they said it involves human dignity, it offends human dignity, if they want to get married, so they're allowing gay marriage. So what they're doing is, they're not being passive, they're actually violating the Torah, because they say, well, they should...
So there's an example.
Yeah.
Okay, so there is another Gemara actually before this one in Brachas, where it talks about if you see somebody, Amar Vidim Rav, Hamoitza climb a big day, Poshna fil b'shuk. If you see we're not allowed to wear shatnez. You know what shatnez is?
Yes.
Not allowed to wear wool linen. Now, if the Gemara says over here, it says that if you find somebody, and it's not clear where it says the word somebody, and we'll get to it in a minute, if you see somebody wearing shatnez on the street, you have to take it off, even in public, even if it means that you're going to be naked, you have to take it off. Now,
Take it off yourself or the other person?
So now it's a question. Let's go back to the first case. Somebody is sleeping and there's a dead person next to him. We know for sure that if he gets up and he sees all of a sudden there's somebody next to him, so now he knows that if he stays in this room, he is in effect actively sitting in this room and violating the law. So he has to run out. The question is that if he didn't know, I walk into the room, I see a Kohen over there, and I see a dead person next to him. Am I allowed to? Do I have to do one of the two? Do I have to either tell the Kohen, wake up the Kohen, and tell him, you know what, I think, get up, get dressed, come outside with me for a minute. Am I allowed to do that? Or do I wake him up and I tell him, there's a dead person there, you have to run out right away? It's up to me. Because if I just wake him up to go outside, he'll naturally just put on his clothes and go outside. And he does not have the knowledge that there is a Kohen over there. Or must I tell him that there's a dead person there? These are hard questions. So the question is, what's considered actively and what's considered passively? The way they answer it, that if somebody is wearing something, I'm walking on the street, even though that clothes was on me, it's considered that I'm actively doing something wrong. I'm actively wearing something. And that's why the Rambam disagrees. The Rosh, who is an equal of the Rambam, he's a Rishon, we talk about Rishonim and Achronim. The Rosh says that I'm allowed to go over, if I see somebody wearing shatnez, I'm allowed to go over to the guy and I'm going to tell him, come here with me a minute. I want to show you something in my house. And once he's in your house, tell him, oh, by the way, you're wearing shatnez, take it off. But the Rambam says, no. If you see somebody wearing shatnez, even if he's a rabbi, you have to not only tell him to take it off, but you yourself have to rip it off him. Because by you,
Rip off his jacket.
you have to rip off somebody's jacket if you know that he's wearing shatnez. Because here is an interesting thing. He is only being passive, maybe. But you have an obligation to
Do the mitzvah.
to do this, and by not doing it, it's as if you are wearing the shatnez. So the avera, so it's not so much the problem on the person that's wearing it, it's that since you have not done something.
What's the paskin? What's the halacha?
Huh?
You have to go to that.
Well, I don't know. I'm not sure what the halach is. I didn't get that far in researching this, and we ran out of time. But it's a machlokas rishonim. So usually in these things, I mean, there is
I think they go the way that, they should not embarrass him in the street or something.
right. Okay, so maybe I'll research that and I'll tell you what the halach is. But we got to go. Okay, bye.
It's